couple, first thing, and it's going to be primarily, we're gonna go through defense. And then maybe, depending on how far along we go, we'll switch over to offense, but it's going to focus mainly on active defense. And I'm going to apologize a little bit because my thought patterns kind of work in very, like, all different directions. So sometimes I'll veer off and I won't stay very focused. So I apologize for that. I'll try to stay within some structure. For me, the defense is based. I base most of it on the fact that everybody's trained to finish their attack at a certain time. Okay, everybody from the first day that they start taking lessons up through the time that they're world champion. It doesn't make any difference. They're trained to finish their action at an appropriate moment. So my defense is focused around giving the person that moment. Okay? And generally what people are looking for when they're looking for a moment to finish their attack is the correct distance, a target, and a moment. Okay? So for me, the defensive action is basically to give the person that. Give them the moment that they're looking for. And I do a lot of it is really, and I know all of you have done this before, is false counterattack parry repost. And I think that the false counterattack parry repost is used far less in fencing than it could be used. If you take your lesson, you're 8 years old, your coach gives you the right distance, what do? You lunge and hit it. Okay? You're 12 years old, the coach gives you the right distance, you lunge and hit it. You're 26 years old, you're a finalist in the world. Coach gives you the right distance, usually you lunge and hit them. So if your opponent gives you the right distance, most likely you're going to attempt to lunge and hit them. Now there might be times where you can say to yourself, I know this person is planning a false counterattack and they're going to parry repost afterwards, but those years of training, every day you take that lesson, right? And every day when that distance is given to you, you finish. So if you give the person that distance and that moment in an intense environment, okay, where there's mobility, they're nervous, all of the competitive things are going on, they're probably going to fall back onto the thing that they've been trained to do. Even though they may say to themselves, hesitate, don't finish, and disengage or finish later. Right? If you catch them at the right moment and you give them that right moment, they're going to finish because they're trained to do it. It's just from lesson after lesson after lesson for so many years. So it's based a lot on, my defense is based very much on that. So we're going to work off of false counterattack parry repost. False counterattack parry repost, false counterattack counterattack, false counterattack getaway. I use getaway go as, like some people say repost with distance, some people say attack fails and then restart the attack. I just say get away, go. So false counterattack, get away, go. So it's going to revolve around that, and we're going to do exercises with that in mind. And it's also a system that's set up to be very much like a bout. Okay, so when I'm teaching it, it's a lot like it would be in an actual, more in a combat situation. Not all the time, obviously, but quite a bit. I'm also very focused on technique. I'm a very technique-oriented guy, and I finally, a couple of years ago, I was watching this football coach. I can't remember who it was, but he said one day, sometimes good is good enough. Okay, I had always been like, it's got to be, you know, like everything has to be just perfect, just perfect, just perfect. And he said, sometimes good is good enough. If the person can do the action, maybe the action is not as perfect as it can be, but the moment is perfect, or the idea or the understanding is good, and maybe, you know, the technique is not exactly the way you would want it, but it's good. It doesn't always have to be perfect. And for me, it made it possible for me to focus a little less on just that, just getting stuff right, technically, to feeling the moment a little bit more. But again, and when I approach technique good coach, Emmett, you guys maybe, Emmett Kaidanov, good coach at Penn State. I worked with him for a couple of weeks, about 1980, 83, something like that, a long time ago. And we were talking about technique and tactics, and it was interesting. He said something, he said that tactics are always a step ahead of technique. Not a big step ahead, just like a little step ahead. So in approaching how, let's say, you're going to teach somebody to do a feint disengage. They already know how to lunge. They lunge at you a few times, and you parry. And you parry, until they figure out that they're supposed to disengage. And they do a big, ugly disengage, okay, but they figure out the tactic. Okay, so the tactic is to, somebody parries you, you disengage. So now they understand the tactic. So the tactic is just that moment ahead. Then you can work on, you make the feint a little better, the disengage a little better, the lunge a little better. So so they understand what they're doing, and then you help them to do it correctly. So, and in my approach, I spend a lot of time on technique, but I do it with a tactic. So if we're going to do parry 4 repost, it's going to be not just parry 4, parry 4, parry 4 over and over again, repost, but it might be false counterattack parry, false counterattack parry, false, like that. So we'll repeat it a lot, but we'll repeat it in a kind of with a tactical thought in mind. But it's still a lot. I do a lot of, if you ask my students, I do like way too much repetition, but I don't even think that it's quite enough repetition. I think we all tend to move ahead a little faster than we should, and we have to kind of come back and so another guy, you all know Vladimir Neslimov in Kansas, no, Ohio State, sorry. When he first came here, he was here for a couple of years, and we were talking, and he said, this is a guy who was national coach in Russia, team captain in Russia, world champion, Olympic champion, you know, just pretty much had accomplished all that you would think you could accomplish. And he said one day, I have to go back to my coach in Russia to talk to him a little bit, because I think I'm teaching everybody a little bit too much. I have to talk to him about how to approach teaching these people. It was interesting to hear somebody who had achieved that level say, you know, I think I'm giving him too much information. I have to go back and get some help from someone. So, I've been working with some younger coaches trying to teach them how my system works. So you're actually getting me in a much more organized frame of mind than I generally am. So everything is going to be hands-on. If I can, okay, so who wants to help me be like a student for a minute? Jump in. Okay.
I'll embarrass myself.
We're actually, no, you know what we'll do is we'll take, I got a student here, come on over. That was close.
You scared him off?
Aren't you an
Sorry, yeah, nobody tells me that, huh? I'm just standing here, got my zipper down, nobody said anything.
Go for it. I thought you did it.
Yes.
I'm not intentional.
So here when you take an off-top parry and embarrass yourself. I suppose so.
While you're waiting.
And,
Joe Vincenzi was out south.
yes, yeah.
He always said he talked to
Yes, yeah. With the real world.
Quick question.
Oh, yeah.
Why are you using a French grip?
Because if it was here, and for lessons I like a French grip. I can kind of move it around a little bit. It's comfortable. And I usually use like a floor blade, a little shorter blade. I had one of my students, Josh McGuire, who was a pretty good fencer, and I had a pistol grip, and I was giving him lessons and something. It was when you could flick, so the blade would bend and kind of hit him in the shoulder a lot. My hand was pretty fast, and then one day I told him to grab my foil for me and bring it over. So he picks it up, and it's like a number 4 non-electric blade with not, and he's like, just thought you were really strong and really fast. Like it was a realization for him that I was really not as good or strong as I actually was. So never let your fencers grab your foil. But I like that French grip. But I also, I had veered away from using the French grip to teach beginners. And I've gone back to it. I think that like early on, for the young kids, it's just the feeling of having the pommel near the wrist, feeling of using your fingers a little bit more. It's it works well. And then I don't spend that much time with the French grip with them, but we move them to pistol grip. But I like I've gone back to using it as at the beginning
Takes
level.
my hand less. I think
Yeah,
it's much
yeah.
more fatigue. If I do a lot of lessons with the pistol, for some reason my hand gets fatigued.
Yeah, I have you can cheat too. I have elbow problems, so I change. Like I'll use a pistol French, and then I find by putting my hand in different positions all the time, it keeps my elbow from bothering me.
How soon do you move your fencers off of the French?
You know, it depends. If they feel like if I feel like they're moving their fingers well enough, then it could be a month, it could be 6 months, and everything.
Another question. You gave us your philosophy, what you're going to teach and all that stuff, but you're also a fencer.
Yeah.
And with what you just said in the prerequisite there, how did you fence, or what was your fencing style? Would you say just a few words? Because maybe you changed, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Well, you know, I spent.
I know, 'cause
Yeah, I had a French coach who, as much as I did a lot of disengages and about, basically my fencing was like, and then try to hit. I really never, if you could parry 4, counter 4, you could beat me. I could never get past anybody left-handed because they could all parry 4, counter 4. I was useless. Yeah, fencing was not my. But I made the junior world team one year because one of the guys who should have gone ahead of me, there were only 2 events to qualify, Junior Olympics and Nationals. He missed one of them. So I got to go, it was George Jonamore, I got to go ahead of him, and Eve was the coach on the team actually that year. Okay, so, Dylan. So we're going to work, first thing we're going to do is just work on false counterattack parry repose. And for me, we're going to do it in a simple way. I'm just going to start slowly at him. He's going to false, and we're going to do the false counterattack with a half step in, okay? Just with the front foot, false counterattack with a half step in. Again, and this is the idea, is you want to give the person the distance and the target. Okay? And the step in helps convince them that they need to finish their action, okay? People are coming at you with their arm bent, they're approaching slowly. You want to give them that moment, so the step in can help. Or is important. And what happens is people tend to step in too short. You need to be brave and step in deeper. But the reality is that it's not that brave to make the bigger step in, because if you make a bigger step in, your opponent is more likely going to finish directly. So that's less risk to you. So by making a bigger step, forcing your opponent to finish directly, it's a lower risk situation. You make a smaller step in, the distance is a little longer, your opponent is more comfortable to either make an additional step or make a compound action. And then you're screwed, okay? So really you want to convince the person by making a big step in, forcing them to finish the action. Now, it's not the only way. We'll also work on false counterattack, stepping away, and then parry. But for right now, we're going to stay with this step in. And because there's a step in, I do it 2 ways, and unfortunately, I keep changing my mind about which one is more effective. More often, I do the bigger step in, and then no retreat with a parry. Stay still with a parry. By doing the false counterattack with a big step in, and then not parrying, it doesn't open up the distance and allow the person to make a compound action. Because what I find happens is that most often people will make the smaller step in and start the retreat too soon, and the other person goes compound, and then you're stuck again. Okay? So I'll stay here and then make the parry and repose. Okay? And all of this starts with movement. So we're assuming that your footwork is good and you can move well, and that the student understands that moving away from somebody or retreating is the same as making an action. Okay? There doesn't have to be an action every time somebody starts to attack you or somebody starts to move towards you. Moving away is as important as doing the false counterattack, parry, false counterattack, whatever you're going to do. Okay? So they understand that moving away is important. So the more you can move away from somebody when they begin their attack, when you do give them the moment, then they're more likely to finish. Okay? They're frustrated because you've moved away so much. Finally, you've stayed still. This is the moment that they see. Now's their opportunity. They go to hit. And also, the more movement you have, the more chance you're going to have the person in a more excited state of mind when they start their attack. If I'm just standing still and they're standing still and they start and I do false counterattack, parry, false counterattack, and then parry, they're pretty relaxed. They're beginning. It's going to be easier for them to feint disengage. The more you can get them to be moving around, the more active you can get, and to get their mind in a different area, and the more intense you make it, the more likely that they're going to respond in a way they've been taught to respond. And then the parry. So you have a false counterattack. The distance is close. What does that change about the parry? What do we have to do when we parry? We have to make a big parry. Okay? So rather than having a false counterattack and a small parry, it's going to be a false counterattack and a bigger parry. And because the distance is going to be close, the bigger parry, just a little bit of hold, bump, and then the touch. And for me, because of the timing of the weapon, people want to remise a little bit more often. The bigger parry, the blade goes by you, and then you can make your repost. The blade goes by you. In order for them to repost, they have to pull their arm back, so it gives you a moment. The smaller parry in front, and you do it too soon, they can hit with their remise right away, close out. Maybe if my repost is a little slow, I'm not going to get it in time for the machine not to cut out, not to close off. So here, I parry. Now they have to pull their arm back while I'm trying to hit them, so that gives me that little bit of moment that you should be able to make my repost. All right. So basically, Dylan, I want you to false counter. I'm going to start engage. You can everything can start however you want it. For now, we're going to start it with I'll start engage, and my attack is going to start just here. False counterattack. Step in, and then parry. Okay, big parry. You can go ahead with me. I'm pretty. Okay. No step is just the one. False counterattack, parry, and go ahead. Okay. All right. False counterattack. That's it. Again, false. There. So we're going to start just doing this slow beginning and then pointing into the target. And when the point goes into the target, not out here, right here, and push the point into the target so that it's as real as possible. Okay? Doesn't have to be fast. Here and then here. Okay? False and then there. Okay? Now, as this action would go on, the next is false. Say, let's do false counterattack. Get away. So one retreat. Okay? And this is going to be slow. It's not going to be much faster than this here. Retreat and then lunge. All right. Okay, so up, up, up. Okay? Stay a little closer. So close to, and I work very close distance most of the time. Up, up. Now parry again. Here, parry. I'm going to do the same thing each time. You're going to choose false counterattack, parry, or get away. Okay, so he's got two actions. Yeah.
So Bucky, if he's stepping back, what you're trying to do is not so much parry, but have the attack fall short.
Right.
And then take over the attack from there. So
Yeah.
does he actually have to execute a parry? Or does
No. Just go away.
Right. Okay.
Not with this so much, right? So his other option is false counterattack, counterattack. Okay, so false counterattack, and now I just want you to hit and close, like that. Okay? Up, okay? You better be strong with it. Okay. So he closes and hits a little bit differently than I do. I generally have.
This will make it better. Sure.
Okay. So for me, hit and close, I would do more false counterattack, hit and close. Okay.
The position or parry?
Opposition. Okay. But here, what Dylan was doing was closing and hitting at the same time. So it's counterattack with opposition. For me, I want the person to feel like they're going to the target first and then close. Okay. So it's definitely, you know, a lot of this. I've watched a lot of Sabre over the years, so a lot of it, you know, and Sabre used to be from 20, yes, yeah, from years ago, oh, bomb, hit and close all the time, and I just felt like it was a cool action. So, but so the arm gets out, but the idea, arm getting out faster, and then the close comes after. Okay. Now, as yeah,
Dylan's counterattack is kind of smooth. It's not really sharp, so you give a little more.
yeah, I think he's trying not to hurt you. So. But yeah, it would be, so for me it would be to close in the distance more. So false counterattack and then close the distance either with a lunge or with a cross down. So false counterattack, hit and close here or in. Okay. Again, you know, with a counterattack, obviously if you close the distance more, the person doesn't have a chance to get the point on the target as soon. So it helps to, you guys see, I was using an example. You see the Hunt for Red October? You see the Hunt for Red October years ago? No. I'm glad that you guys are, it's like, you tell this to a group of kids, they're like staring at you like, so they, the Russian submarine guy, captain, is firing at the American boat, so he fires his torpedo, and then the American turns the boat into the torpedo and goes towards it as fast as he can, because it takes a while. The torpedo doesn't arm immediately, so it's just kind of this big round thing coming at you for a little while. So he goes into it and he hits it, and it just breaks up before it has a chance to arm. So for me, that counterattack is the same idea. It's like you've got to hit the person before they have a chance to arm. Of course, you tell that to any young kid, they're like, first they don't know the Hunt for Red October.
Bucky, I have a question. After you close on that counterattack, are you encouraging your fencer and training them to fence out at close distance and in fight, or just go past?
For this, just hit and close. Let's try to keep it kind of simple.
I understand, but tactically, what would you want your fencer?
I would hit. I always like hit and close and stay in. Once you're in, stay in.
But fence it out there.
Yeah.
Don't jump past.
Yeah, I wouldn't back up. It's like boxers. You know, boxers, you never, if the distance closes, they never break until the referee breaks them. Otherwise, you leave with a fist in your face. So Dylan is going to do any of those things. Right? Hit close, go in and do that again. Now, so what's happening with Dylan? What's the problem?
He doesn't want to hit you. He doesn't want to hit you.
He doesn't want to hit me, okay, but more importantly than that. No?
The feint is a little bit too late.
Too late? Yeah, he could make the feint a little sooner, but I think the biggest problem is he hasn't decided exactly what he's going to do before I start, okay? He's got to make his decision prior to me starting, okay? So he knows right now I'm going to do false counterattack parry, I'm going to false counterattack get away, I'm going to make your decision sooner.
The issue is the feint, let's go finish attack.
Yes.
Finish attack. That's, if I'm going too late,
It doesn't do any, yes. So right away, when I begin here, that's it. So each time, you know what you're going to do? Yeah. And so he's got this series of actions. If you wanted to add more, you can hit and get away if you wanted. Okay, so I'm here when I start hitting back away. Right? It can be here too. So any of that combination. So what we're going to do is with partners, we're going to work simply on that. So what I'm going to want you to do is to just do false counterattack straight a few times until the person's comfortable. False counterattack, get away, and no faster than that. No double retreats, no strong actions, just nice and easy that way. No, you know, everybody's and when if I'm doing an exercise with if it's a high-level student and I want to work on just their idea that they got to mix these actions up, it won't be much faster than that. So if I'm giving a regular lesson to Dylan, I'm going to be like just that easy pace all the time. Make up your mind, right? Good. Okay, so I'm going to move them around and mix it. Yeah.
But now you're giving him more of an invitation, so it's like,
I'm giving him an invitation. I'm starting.
it's not a counterattack.
You know, I'm starting my attack by bringing my arm back a little bit, but I'm moving forward. Right. Right.
Well, that's what I was just about to pick up. More from your pedagogy and your execution as a coach, your broad actions, you're standing still. You may not be standing still enough for that version before. You're stepping in, you know, you're pushing the attack.
Yes.
So from a coach's point of view, you've got to be able to have that type of stand still.
No. So you're right. So I'm moving, and I'm starting. I need to give him a signal to start my attack. Okay. So my signal could be a variety of. Good. Okay. It can be anywhere. Good. That's it, okay? So I can make any attack that I want, any start that I want, but it's not going to be, for now, it's not going to be this is the attack. It's not going to be like this. I need to give him a little moment. I need to give him a chance to do it. Most people don't start their attack that much that way. This is a false counterattack, somebody starting a little slower. If the attack is starting more direct to the point, there's a whole other series of actions that would take place. This is for somebody starting a little bit more compound, a little slower attack.
But just an observation, with the way people are, you know, fencing now, Italian school, there's a lot of this coming forward where they're not giving the blade action. So
Right.
they're hiding the blade, it's still the referee is saying, oh, and they're taking that, like you said, they get the distance, they give the attack.
Yeah.
And if they're closing the distance, they're trained so that they're closing the distance and they parry the plus they play the counter time.
Yeah.
But from the perception of, yes, I'm getting my distance, and if you haven't got the blade, boom, I'm just giving the attack.
Right.
So that's why the coaches got to be coming forward.
Yeah.
And by putting the false attack in, I'm going, yeah, I'm going to finish, and then you go to the counter time.
Yep. Exactly.
Let's say from the point of view of the fencer that's going to get the touch. So basically, he's looking to do a false attack because you're giving him like a little opening. So he's doing a little false attack, and then you're going to try to, with the right distance, you're going to try to hit him, and then he's finishing up and hitting you with the point at the end. Did I make myself clear on that?
Well, it's okay. Depending on how you look at it, let's look at it in the context of modern fencing. Okay, the way it's interpreted. If I start like this, okay, I'm attacking.
Right.
Okay.
So then
Whether
he's
he's doing a
attacking.
false attack.
Then
So the
he's
false
attacking
attack.
in your attack.
False counterattack. He's
False
doing it-
counterattack.
Right.
Right.
Forcing me to finish my attack. Right. So when he does his false counterattack, his goal is to get me to finish. He wants me to finish.
Right.
And once he and this is the point is that if
But his thought is to do the next move after that.
Yes, yeah.
That's his real attack.
Yes,
Yeah, it's a
that's his
feint-
real
feint in
purpose,
time.
Right.
So if I attack him when I want to attack him, okay, and where I want to attack him, I'm gonna be able to hit him whenever I want. Okay, it's gonna be much easier for me to find a target. If he gives me the moment to attack him, there's a better chance. If he gives me the moment and the place, and I go there, it's much easier for him to parry. Okay, basically, you want the person to go where you. Same in the military, you know, like army. You want everybody to go one spot so you can attack them. So it's easier when they're all right where you want them. So
It's still a risk. Because
he can get in. Of course, it's a risk. But it's less of a risk
calculate the risk.
to have him do it when you want him to and go where you want him to, than to allow him to do it wherever he wants.
Would you, at some point, when he's confident now in your full,
Yeah.
would you then randomize the son by, instead of doing an amputation, do some action like that, which you would then have to respond to? You know, that would be okay.
Yeah. And, you know what?
He has to see which one, which application to take.
Yeah, I mean, if I do this, if we're doing here with false counterattack like this, and all of a sudden in the mix of the action I do just be straight, he's got to respond. He can respond by either retreating and not doing anything. He can respond by parrying. And then we'll go into that a little more as we go on. But let's start with how we can execute this false counterattack parry first. Okay, so start with your student false counterattack parry. Next, false counterattack get away, and then next false counterattack, counterattack. Don't worry if your student is not doing it that well. Only let your student do it a little bit and see, and then let them do what they want. So you start the same way. Now this is kind of a more difficult part for coaches. We have to pay attention a little bit. We're doing the same thing each time, and your student's going to do something different each time. So you have to be prepared for that. The more traditional way of giving a lesson is tell your student what to do, they do it, and you're like this, okay? So here, they have the choice. And maybe, in the middle of this action that you're doing, your student does something that you didn't expect them to do. So instead of false counterattack 4, he goes false counterattack dream and hit, or false counterattack counter 6, or spins out, whatever it is, it's okay. So, and a lot of times they may have a better idea than you have. When I was beginning to coach, one of my students, Felicia Zimmerman, she was very creative. And a lot of times I'd have an idea, we'd start the lesson with that idea, and she'd do something different, and I'd be like, that was better than my idea. Okay? So you can learn a lot that way. But so if the student does something different, it's okay. So let's try that as a good group now. So grab a student, grab a jacket, and play.
We have to wear a jacket? Oh, come on.